All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to the matchup report. Very fun show today. Lots to talk about as usual. The show's gonna be a little bit different today. We're gonna be doing our review as usual. We'll be talking about some of the coaching changes that happened and some other minor things that have happened with the NFL. But we are not going to be doing a full Super Bowl or any really kind of Super Bowl preview this show because we want to save that for as we get closer to the game. As you know, we'll have a couple of weeks, so we want to save that, and we're going to do an extensive review of both teams leading up to the Super Bowl to talk about how those teams got there and their paths towards the Super Bowl and basically why they're there and why they're now both Super Bowl contenders. So that'll be a lot of fun for us to do, but we figured we would take more of a extensive look with those teams rather than putting them as just one segment in our show. But besides that, as always, there's always something fun to talk about with the NFL. Besides the games, there's always drama and things going on with the offseason. So don't worry, there's plenty of content to come. But Jay, how you doing, man?
I am good. You're lucky that you're on the West Coast because us on the East Coast here, we're kind of freezing. And it has
Well,
been
I don't
very
know. It's supposed to like maybe have some light rain later this week, so everyone's kind of bugging out.
fair me. They were talking about it's supposed to get the single digits this week and maybe even below that. I'm not ready for this. Okay.
It's
I
always funny, like the grass is greener on the other side thing, because you're over there complaining about it and talking about like, man, like you're lucky in California. Part of me was like I was going to bed the other night and I was like looking at like how the storm was going in Philly, and I saw the video of the guy doing circles around town or City
oh,
Hall, and I was like, and that's right by where I used to work in Center City too. I was like, man, and like seeing Philly in the snow and all that, I was like, I kind of miss it. Like part of me wishes I was there, like going with my friends to like everything shut down basically except for dive bars. So I was like, I'm seeing like getting pictures of my friends all at the dive bars around the city in the snow, and I was like, damn, that could have been fun to do, honestly.
what I will say is that like I'm not the type of person to go out when it snows. When I was a kid, yeah, of course. I was thinking about that, like where would be a good place on campus to like just like sled down somewhere. But I was like, it's way too cold for it to be fun in the snow. Like it's just not fun.
No, I do remember last year. It didn't snow this bad, but there was one point during the last winter when I was in Philly, like having to go through the snow to get to the bar that I was working at because, of course, we were open. That was hell. Like working at the bar when it's like this is boring as hell because, like, yeah, there are degenerates like us who would go out or like me and my friends, but at the same time, it's like it's very like you're not making a lot of money. You're just kind of chilling in a warm bar, which can be fun. But anyways, that's enough of that. Let's get to some football here, man. I am ready to talk about these games. We're gonna start, of course. We always go in order of how they're played in the playoffs. So we'll start with the Broncos and Patriots, and then we'll go to the Rams and Seahawks. But yeah, Broncos Patriots, really interesting game. The weather was 100% a crazy factor in this game, especially in the second half. The snow just kept going. It kept getting heavier and heavier, and made for some interesting coaching decisions early on and later on. Some of which certain coaches might regret, but yeah, Patriots walk away from this game with a win, 10-7, 17 total points scored in this game, which was funny compared to the game we'll be talking about next. But fun fact, real quick: the Patriots, they've only scored 54 points in this playoff run that they've been going through, and that's in 3 games. That is the lowest amount of points any team that's played, like started from the wild card going up. Like that's the lowest amount of points any team has scored in the playoffs in a 3 game stretch leading up to the Super Bowl. So just crazy, which is crazy to think because it was like you have a quarterback who was like an MVP conversation, who led the league in completion percentage. I think it was like around like 61%. And this offense was like, like dicing people up. And we've talked all the time about like before the playoffs, this was a team that had an easier schedule. It hadn't really faced like a really top tier defense before going to the playoffs, and that they might struggle a little bit going into the playoffs. Of course, they've been winning and they're now in the Super Bowl, but they're also not scoring a lot right now. And, it's not going to get easier when they get the Super Bowl either, but just interesting stuff. I think that also you have to give the Patriots credit for finding ways to keep winning these games even though they're not scoring a lot, and a lot of that is on their defense, which is kind of where I want to start this conversation. This defense was really good this game. I know the weather, like we said, was a big factor, but Milton Williams and like Caleb Von Chason, Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, like all of these guys were just locked down in this game. It was like insane, and they were going after Jared Stidham, the Broncos' backup quarterback who had to start this game because Bo Nix got hurt, and especially on third down. It seems like Mike Vrabel and like this defense was just like, we're gonna attack this backup like on like I'm not gonna say he wasn't prepared, but like this is a tough situation to be thrown into for a guy who hadn't really started a game in the NFL since 2023 I think it was. So really tough for him. But this Patriots defense, as they've gotten healthier and as we've gone further into the playoffs and really kind of later in the season, they've gotten better and better, and they've been a big part of. I think they are the biggest part as to why they are now in the Super Bowl because of those players and how they've been able to play aggressive, lock and play with that. Like Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez are a great tandem to have as boundary corners, like strong physical guys who can travel with corners. But then in the middle, you get Marcus Jones, your slot corner, who's a captain on that defense. He's just excellent all across the board, high energy, and you can put him anywhere. So just really shout out to the defense, man. They were I think they were fantastic in this game.
Yeah, and coming in, I think the one thing, and this is what I think the Patriots did really well this game, and it's yes, the Patriots did really well, but I think the Broncos equally did it just as bad, which was running the ball. And I think running the
Oh yeah,
ball was a big difference, especially if you have a player like Jared Stidham who hasn't played and really started a game in 2 years, and to put him in a high profile situation like this and say, all right, go out there and lead us to the Super Bowl. Like it's difficult, and I think the easiest way to take some strain off of that would have been to run the ball, but the run
yeah,
game was basically non-existent. And to be fair, it's like I think it also is like you respectfully, you can't put a lot on a rookie in RJ Harvey or McLaughlin and say like go out there and like lead this as well. So I think it's an issue of personnel, but also just the Patriots capitalizing on this and knowing that like in order to win this game, we need to really put Jared Stidham in difficult positions, and that's exactly what they did.
yeah. Drake May was only pressured 38% in this game, while Jarrett Stidham was pressured 35%. But Stidham also threw the ball 10 more times. So, and he was pressured 13 times and sacked 3. So I mean, both quarterbacks were. I mean, they're the Broncos defense, like you said, like they were also fantastic. They got out their May, but Stidham, it's just he didn't handle the pressure well at all, man. Like it's like I said, I don't want to keep saying he's like unprepared, but like this was like I said, a tough situation for you to be if you're Stidham, and the Patriots defense took full advantage of that. They went after this guy, saying like, "Look, you're a backup. We're gonna test you. We're gonna see how you handle this." And I mean, think about that fumble that was like game changing that he had, where the Patriots come up with it and they're able to go and score. And in a game where you win by 3 points, obviously, and 17 total points are scored, everything matters. And you lost a fumble and you turned it over. And that in a game like this, it's turnovers are going to be crazy important, and points are going to be crazy important, which is why the decision to not kick a field goal by Sean Payton earlier in the game ended up being kind of controversial. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this. What was your thoughts immediately when you saw that they were going for it instead of kicking it? Because they were like, what, 15 yards out or something like that?
Yeah. So okay, here's my thing, and I think it was a lose-lose situation. And I think really it's easy to look back on a situation like this and say like that was a difference maker, the difference making moment of this game, and saying that's the reason why this game wasn't 10-10 and heading overtime or whatever it may be because of the outcome of this game. And I think it was the right decision where it's like you're in, but it's okay. It's a combination of I think it was the right decision, but it really is a coaching risk. Like I think you live or die by like going for it on fourth down. And there's so many coaches who have, especially recently, who have gotten more aggressive by looking at analytics and saying, well, like we're this close, we might as well go for it. Like these points matter. And I think like people will like say like if say the Broncos were able to get that fourth down, they go down and score. That would be the difference maker of this game and saying, well, they won 14-10 instead of lost 10-7. Like it's a risk, and I think in playoff situations and in big moments, you want to take these risks. And I don't blame him for it. Obviously, the execution wasn't, what it was. And I think the one thing I'll say that I think should have been better was the actual play calling situation itself. And especially like putting Jarrett Stidham in that position, I think is what made this decision a lot more heinous looking back at it.
Yeah, I mean it's like the hindsight 2020 thing, but and Sean Payton has historically been aggressive. I feel like he's kind of like the god. I don't know if you can call him the godfather of it, but I mean think about like Dan Campbell came from the Sean Payton coaching tree, and what do we know Dan Campbell for? Always being aggressive on fourth down and going for it. I mean think about last year in the playoffs or anytime they've been in the playoffs, the Lions. It seems like every time they lose a game, there's always a conversation. Huh?
I think he just does it in the preseason. He
Yeah. Yeah,
wherever.
I'm just saying, like, even in the most high leverage moments, he's still going after it like that. And he learned from a guy like Sean Payton. And, like, I don't want to knock him for it, but at the same time, I feel like you have to take the easy points when you have a backup quarterback and like that. You have to take the points that are available to you and trust in your defense, which is a top 3 defense in the league, to help you win this game. But, yeah,
Wait,
like,
you mentioned trust in the defense, and I think with a decision like this, I think going for the fourth down even shows the amount of trust you have in your defense to be like, well, like it's a close game. If we don't get this, our they're at least pinned back. Our defense can step in and get that. Like I understand the thinking, and I think once again, I think the thing that makes this like looking back at it makes it so heinous was the actual play calling itself, where I think the execution was sloppy. And that shouldn't have been the play that you drew up in a big moment like that. But I agree with the decision, and even more so when you look at the the numbers and see how the Patriots defense was able to hold up against an MVP favorite, which I also want to like semi transition to.
Or the Broncos defense.
Yeah, the Broncos defense at least.
Yeah.
And I think like yes, the pressure numbers don't show it, but I think like Drake May was like having a difficult time out there, and I think kind of under the rug just because of like they won the game. And I think at the end of the day, like you look at this and say, well, he made the plays that would that were able to win the game. He scores the touchdown that makes a difference. But other than that, like it wasn't an MVP performance like we've seen Drake May play all season. And yes, he's going up against this Broncos defense
and the weather
and the weather. But I think even somebody took a screenshot of like when it first started snowing and showing Drake May's stats up to that point. And I think that's what I like. I think that's what you can really look at for both quarterbacks and both teams, really, because it then becomes just all right, like, who can punt the furthest after that, basically. It's just really a field position type of game. But I even then, like Drake May was 10 for 21, 86 yards, 0 touchdowns through the air. But also like, and this is the side effect to this, where it's like, well, he didn't play like wasn't throwing the ball that you wanted the way you wanted him to, but he still scored the rushing touchdown that made the difference in this game. He didn't turn the ball over with an interception. Like I think these are the things where it's like, well, like he wasn't playing at an MVP level, but we were seeing him do things to take care of the ball where he's not being, like costly with it. Like
he made the right plays.
Yes. If he throws 2 interceptions, like, and I was gonna say he turns into CJ Stroud. No, I'm not gonna go there, but
CJ Stroud, Josh Allen. I mean, name a quarterback in the playoffs. It feels like.
Yeah, he throws a couple interceptions, and I think the Patriots are not the Broncos are able to take advantage of one of those, score a field goal, maybe 2, and that's the difference. But it's like yes, like I kept looking at this and saying, well, Drake May didn't really play well, but I'm like, I mean, does it matter if they won the game? He made the right plays and he did what they needed to do to win. And I think people have been like comparing Drake May's stats to like I've seen Jalen Hurts playoff run last year and saying, well, like. This is the MVP y'all are saying, but Jalen Hurts can't throw the ball. And it's difficult because Drake May has gone up against genuinely the gauntlet of defenses and the Texans and the Broncos. So it's like and especially for a quarterback who was criticized for not really, playing, difficult teams on a schedule, which obviously he can't control. It's kind of refreshing to see, like, yes, he's not playing, he's not going out there throwing for 300 yards, but he's making the right plays. He's doing what the team needs to win these games.
100%. And I mean, sticking with the offense, they won the time of possession. I think they had the ball for like 21 minutes in the second half, which is crazy. They were playing a lot bigger than they normally do, using certain jumbo packages. A lot of things were way more condensed. Like a lot of their formations, like the receivers were like right there in the middle. They weren't spread out wide. So I mean, I think especially once the second half started, once you saw the weather starting to get worse, the Patriots made a conscious decision, just like let's just win time of possession, don't turn the ball over, and just get whatever yards we can get. And if you have the lead, just keep playing that way because you can bleed the clock out and get away from this crazy snow game. And just hope that your defense can make some plays, which they did. They get a game-sealing interception basically with like just over 2 minutes left. Which Christian Gonzalez, great job. I mean, fantastic job this game. Yeah, he faced a lot of targets, like more targets than Christian Gonzalez would probably face, honestly, in a playoff game. But he did a fantastic job. But yeah, so they were playing bigger, they were running the ball. Ramondre Stevenson basically was like the primary guy this entire game. I think Henderson only touched the ball like 4 times in the run game.
Three rushing attempts.
Yeah, 3 rushing attempts for him. When he's been like kind of like that, like home run hitter for them, the rookie. But Stevenson was just like, hey, look, man, we just need a bell cow physical guy. Let's just keep running this ball. We're not going to get a whole lot of yards, but we're just going to keep trying to move the ball and keep the clock going. And they did a fantastic job of doing that. Honestly, it was That was the impressive part. And with Drake May, like, yeah, look, the throwing numbers, and you already mentioned the rushing touchdown. I think it was his legs specifically on offense that helped them win this game. Not even just because he ran the ball for a touchdown. Like, he had what, 80 or how many, 50 something yards on the ground?
65 rushing yards on 10 attempts.
65, right? Yeah. And look, and they were all big plays. Like, his legs, I think, were the biggest factor for them on offense. And that's why on the flip side, when you talk about the Broncos and the struggles that they had on offense, I think they were really messing up or missing Bo Nix's athleticism and his legs in this game because while Stidham's like, I'm not gonna say he's a complete like Peyton Manning kind of a statue, but he's not like the most athletic guy, especially when you compare him to what Bo Nix could offer you on the rollouts and the scrambles that he was able to have success on. Jarrett Stidham, you're gonna get a little bit less of that with the creativity and how he's able to escape pressure, and I think we saw that in this game, and that's why the Patriots were going after him on those third down plays because they're like, we don't think you can escape us, so we're just going to go after you. You're going to panic under the pressure, and you're not going to have the athleticism to get away from us. And I think that's what ended up really hurting the Broncos, especially on offense, because, like you said, they couldn't get the run game going. RJ Harvey tried. We talked about previously in the game that the other running back that they have, why am I blank? J.K. Dobbins was practicing he might be able to play this game, but then he didn't. And part of me was like, well, I feel like he would have been a better running back for this type of game for them. So I'm not making excuses for the Broncos, right? They had opportunities to stay in and win this game. Like, it was only a 3-point game, so there were opportunities there for the Broncos. They just weren't able to capitalize.
And I think, like towards the end of the game, you could sense that like everyone knew that like the Patriots were like, all right, like don't turn the ball over, and especially that was their mindset once the snow starts coming down. Is play conservative, and then punt, like because we don't trust that you're going to go down and have to go 80 yards and score against this defense. You haven't been able to, and the snow is going to make it even more difficult. And what they did was and look, I think this is just a summary of the entire game, but making sure completely taking out the run game one, but then forcing throwing downs, I think was the most important thing because it's like, yes, like we still like even if the run game isn't working, it is still beneficial for you to make an offense one-dimensional. And they made the Broncos offense one-dimensional. They made them have to throw the ball and have to go down and score to win the game. And that's why we saw the turnover that ends the game because they're trying to, push the ball down the field and score with a backup quarterback. And I think that's what made this game really difficult for the Broncos is that the Patriots constantly throughout the game, one, eliminated the run, and then two, forced throwing downs where it was very predictable.
Yeah, and real quick on both O-lines in this game, bad performances from both. Honestly, I think both D-lines had a lot of success in this game. For the Broncos online, we talked a lot about how they are really good pass protectors. Like even starting last year with Sean Payton and Bo Nix, like going into this year, they've been one of the better pass protecting O-lines. We were always more concerned about the run game, but even in the pass blocking in this game was really bad. Like Quinn Miners and guys like that, like Milton Williams and Barmore were getting after. Like Milton Williams was fantastic in this game, man. Like I think it was him. He was tied for the lead in this game on his team for pressures. He's just so good, man. I mean, shout out to the former Eagle. Like he was worth every dollar so far this season that the Patriots paid for him in free agency. Which you could say that about a lot of guys on this Patriots defense. By the way, they were like top 5 in spending in free agency this year, and it feels like most of those guys like hit for them. I mean, you think about like Carlton Davis, Chason, Milton Williams, guys like that. And there's like 8 other guys. I mean, you think about like Stephon Diggs, like. Their free agency class was so helpful for them and boosting them to have as much success as they've had this year. So that's been good. But then, flipping it to the Patriots O-line, woof, man, just yikes. This looked more like the Patriots O-line of last year, which was one of the worst in the league. In fact, I think they were like it was the number of the Texans were the worst in the league last year. Will Campbell, man, look, I mean, he's been going through a gauntlet these playoffs, but I mean, there was one play he tried to do like a chop block, and instead of actually making any contact with the edge rusher, which I think was Benito, he was full extension, like horizontal off of the ground, completely whiffed on getting any contact on the edge rusher, and that it was just basically like a straight path to Drake May. And that's not the first time we've seen him have bad. I mean, that's just like one like highlight, kind of low light kind of play, but like it's genuinely not been a great experience for Will Campbell in the playoffs. And I know we're not doing previews, but that's not a great sign going forward against one of the best defenses in the league and the Seahawks that you're going to have to go against. So that's something to look out for. Maybe they just need to get healthier, get a little bit of rest, and not play in a torrential snow game, whatever you want to call it. But yeah.
Even then, it's funny because I just wrote in my notes like, Will Campbell, I'm worried for you, like
dude. It's like, and look, we talked about it coming into his rookie year, like the arm length, and like we are talking about maybe you should kick him inside to guard. Like I don't know how well he'll be as a tackle, and when you put stuff like this on tape, that only kind of reinforces it, man. We talked about with his arm length, there's only been like 3 or 4 people who have had like long or successful careers in the NFL with that arm length, and so he's got the odds working against him, and he has put stuff on tape earlier in the year where like okay we can work with this, like he can be decent, but when you're going up against really good edge rushers like he has been throughout the playoffs, it hasn't been great at all. I mean, think about, I mean, Miles Garrett is the peak of that. Miles Garrett had 5 sacks that game. And then now you go into the playoffs and he's going against guys like Will Anderson and Benito and so on and so forth. And it hasn't been the greatest showing. So that's something that I think the Patriots need to definitely take a look at going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, he's still a rookie, and obviously
That too.
that's like it's a learning experience, and what better way to learn than like having a bunch of welcome to the NFL moments, whether it's Miles Garrett running through you or the Broncos defense running through you in the playoffs.
Yeah.
These things, like I still do think like he'll be a talented player, but like I think this is just like it's very clear that like all right, like you were drafted high, yes, but there's still a lot of work here.
Yeah. And just real quick shout out to Pat Surtain. Dude, he's so amazing. Like he's so goddamn good. It's like there was he's just like sticky like the entire time, man. Like you can't get away from him. He's truly is like top 3 corner in the league. You can see why he won Defensive Player of the Year last year. Okay, anything else for this game before we move on?
Nope.
Yeah, it was a interesting game, man. Lots of interesting decisions. You're just kind of waiting to see. I did want to ask you, how do you feel about weather snow games like this? Like, what is your like? Do you think they're fun? Like, to me, when I see heavy snow like this, I'm like, okay, this like the aesthetics are cool, but what do you think about the actual product?
So one, I think they're kind of a rarity in today's NFL, just because of the domes and everything. And to be fair, like I do understand the logistics standpoint of it, where it's like especially for like a franchise, it gives you more options in terms of getting Super Bowls and stuff that you're
Concerts or whatever it is.
But at the end of the day, I think like, and it's just from my experience, like growing up watching it, and this is the fan perspective, and then I'll get to like the actual like me like as an analyst perspective. As a fan, like I watched LaShawn McCoy run through the snow against the Lions like I say a couple years ago. That was like probably a decade ago. And like seeing those type of memories and like everyone, that's like a classic like Philly game. I think like there's a couple Philly games that like people, if you were to ask, like
Remember the Meadowlands 2,
yeah,
LaShawn McCoy's game.
obviously both
Um,
Bulls.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, and Nick Foles' 7 touchdown game against the Raiders.
there's a couple. All that to say that like I think they're fun, and as someone who was at the Rams game last year when it started snowing, and you see Saquon running through the snow, and then
Yeah.
Jalen Carter bulldozing whoever they're bulldozing somebody to get to Matthew Stafford, like those moments stick with me. So I really enjoy it as a fan. As an analyst, I enjoy it. It's like, oh, it's cool. Like you get to see like players, especially like I think this is mostly an advantage for like I think defenses, like it turns into a defensive battle, and I think we saw that this Patriots Broncos game, and I look at it and I say like, all right, cool, like it's fun to watch as a fan, especially if you don't got any stake in the game. But like as an analyst, I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, like you kind of like I talked about being one dimensional, and I think you see that like teams just become one dimensional, where it's like, all right, who has the best run game? All right, it's not working. We'll throw a couple quick slants, quick passes. Oh, it's not working. All right, we'll punt. Like it is. I think there's it makes sense. Like you don't want to take, like difficult shots in the snow, and especially in weather like it was. But it's funny because they were. I think it was either this broadcast or the broadcast last week where they were talking about like it's actually better for it to like rain because it like something about it makes it easier or whatever. But either way, all is to say that I think they're like it becomes predictable in a sense where it's like that teams are going to play it safe, and especially in moments like this, I think it like in my opinion, I think like all it takes is one deep shot, and all of a sudden like you're in a big chance. Like I think if the Broncos like, and obviously I'm not a coach, so like I could be completely invalid with this, but like if like they on first down, right? Everyone thinks they're running the ball, like especially with the snow coming down. They take a deep shot to Cortland Sutton, and he goes like 60 yards. Like that's a game changing play where it's like it does a lot. One for like obviously field positioning and getting yourself in better position, but also for the arena and building atmosphere where it's like, oh shit, like like you can feel it when stuff like that happens, and especially in a home game for the Broncos like this, I think that would have been beneficial where you see like, all right, like it was a big chance, it worked, and like, all right, here we go, like we're not scared, we're already in a much better field goal range, and obviously it's still snowing, but our chances instantly are better. So I look at it and I was like, all right, I think there could always like I just don't think there's a lot of chances taken in snow games, and I understand why, but I still think like it if you want to catch teams off guard, especially when it becomes a defensive battle and it's just like let's run the ball, let's try to just play the field goal game. I think a deep shot mixes things up.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, personally, like I said, aesthetically, I think it looks sick. It slows everything down, that's for sure. You're not seeing the best football, but it's a certain type of football that I think can be fun to watch.
I think you really start to see like how impressive defensive linemen are, and you see like, all right, like they're really making an impact.
100%. Yeah. It's, I don't know. Yeah. Well, I was about to say, like, I have a couple Broncos fans in my family, and they were obviously it's very sad and everything that when you lose, but like I think even as like an analyst, you can look at it and be like, man, if this was a like normal weather game, it would have been cool to see like who would have came out on top of this. But like I said, before we even came to this game, we knew that it was gonna be like heavy snow. I was still leaning Pats, but yeah, it was closer than I thought it was gonna be, and I think the weather was a big part of that.
Yeah, I went Broncos, so I lose out on this one, but my thinking was right, and it was a big if hinging on the run game, and the run game really just failed me. So I'll
Yeah.
live.
Hey, you know what? It can't always be right. All right, let's move on to Rams and Seahawks. This we previewed this when we were talking about like this could be the best game in the playoffs, even including the Super Bowl, like whoever like whatever matchup that was going to be. And I think that held true. I know it wasn't as exciting as some of the other games, like in certain ways where like especially like that first round, we had so many like fourth quarter changes. Like we had two different games where it was like four fourth quarter changes, one of those including the Rams. But this game was so great because of how clean, and you just had like best on best elite level football, and it was clean, man. Like it was just really really great football to watch. The Seahawks walk away from this win in Seattle 31-27. Like I said, stark difference from the first game of the day. But I think we have to start with Sam Darnold. I mean, like, man, call the show Dunkin' Donuts because there's about to be a lot of glaze. But Sam Darnold, this might have been his best game he's ever had. I don't even think that's an argument. This was the best game he's ever had. I mean, it's a game, win or go home, winner goes to the Super Bowl. He started and ended this game as well as you could have asked for, especially when Matt Stafford is on the other side having also like a top game of his career, playing at an elite level. But Sam Darnold did exactly what you needed him to do in this game, given like how the other team was doing. I mean, he threw for an insane amount of yards. I don't even want to get to the box stats with this. It was just how he was manipulating the pocket, how he was avoiding pressure, how he was finding the right players every single time. It felt like, whether it be JSN, who was, I mean, we'll get to him in a second. I mean, he's looking to be generational. Even if it was just like quick passes to Kenneth Walker, the throw to Bobo for that touchdown, which was insane on that post route. It was just the way he was operating this entire game was fantastic, man. And it's such a cool story to see a guy who started his career the way he did, less than hell, when he's with the Jets and he's seeing Ghost, and you've got the mono thing, and it's just like all that stuff. And then he goes to the Panthers, and it was like, oh, cool for 3 games, and then it was bad again. He goes to the 49ers. It was like this whole journey that he's had where he got dumped by a team last year after winning 14 games and performing poorly in the playoffs. They move on from him. Now he's in the Super Bowl. And look, the first half of the season, he played really, really well. Second half of the season, it was a bit of a struggle. Since the playoffs have started, though, and especially this game, you can tell he's feeling healthier, too, with that oblique injury. He's been playing fantastic, man. It's just insanely impressive. Like, the entire offense was insanely impressive this game. Like, Darnold was the one leading it, but JSN, like I said, over 150 yards. Kenneth Walker I think he's been underrated as a running back for the most part, but his physicality, the way he can stay up top, like the best things about running backs, right? Always like your contact balance. What can you do after contact? and it's after contact. Can you also keep going forward, right? Can you keep fighting for those extra yards? Do you just go down, or are you able to get those extra 1 or 2 yards when you do get hit and you're going down? And I think everything you want out of a running back, Kenneth Walker can provide for you, even as a receiver, man. I think he's an underrated receiver. He made some great plays in this game where, after the catch, he's doing some fantastic things. There was one play where he got lined up on I think it was Verse. It was either Verse or Byron Young. Either way, you had an edge rusher out covering Kenneth Walker, and that was like predictably not great for the defender. But and then Clint Kubiak, their offensive coordinator for the Seahawks was cooking this game, man. I mean, the Seahawks play, or the Rams play on defense, like mainly zone, like they're heavy a zone team, right? And Clint Kubiak and the Seahawks office took full advantage of that, overloading different sides with their receivers, using motion and putting JSN sort of spots, like all the orbit and motion stuff he was doing with JSN in the backfield. It seemed like the Rams, they talked about it on the broadcast, they had no answer for it. They didn't know what to do anytime he was back there. And it seemed like every time he was back there, he got the ball somehow, including on that one touchdown he had where, the safety just had no idea what to do. And JSN somehow gets open when it's like, that's the one guy. It's like, dude, like, we need to make sure we know where this guy is at all times.
I was going to say, and looking back at it, like, it literally it was a play off of Madden. It was funny that, like, it was like I forgot exactly what it's called, but the route out of the backfield, it's like, I can draw it, but I don't know what it's called. Whatever that is. And it's funny because, like, you mentioned, like, them being zoned, and I think this was the perfect play design for it, or at least in terms of capitalizing off of their zone. Because the DB was covering the flats, and he has to, and I think Cooper Kupp does a great job, like, continuing to hold and sell his position where the DB can't leave him, or it's an easy option, and Cooper Kupp can run in. Instead, he has to hold and holds him in place, which means the safety has to try to come over, and JSN's too fast for that, and you see that where it's like, all right, this is great, play design, but also great execution, and I think this goes back to Sam Darnold, and I'll list off his stats, because I still think that they're pretty impressive, and I'm the stat guy. He was 25 or 36, 346 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I think something that, like, I didn't mention here was you mentioned it a little bit, it was his mobility. And I think seeing him around the pocket was really great. And I think that was, like, that's what made a difference in a game like this. And we talked about it in the Patriots and Broncos game. And it's like, all right, like, when, especially against two great defensive lines, when things collapse, like, are you able to escape and extend the pocket and allow one of your great receivers, one of your great running backs to get open? And I think throughout the game, Darnold did a great job of doing that and continuing to extend plays, look down the field, and make the right throws and make the right throws, but also the safe throws. There wasn't any careless passes, and even from Stafford as well. But I think one of the things when Charbonnet went down, they were like, oh, he's going to be out for us at playoffs. I wasn't worried at all because I was like, you have Kenneth Walker, and I think so many times, like,
you said that last show.
Yeah, like the great thing about having both of them was like, all right, you have a kind of 1-2 punch where, and there was always jokes about Charbonnet basically taking all of his carries down in the goal line. And
he's a red zone vulture.
That's why Kenneth Walker doesn't have any touchdowns. And it was funny. It's like, all right, cool, I'm not getting touchdowns. I'll take it to the house. And I think there's something special about a running back that can kind of do it all. And I think obviously he gets labeled as more of a physical back. But you mentioned it, the pass catching out the back, the ability and the agility to still be able to maneuver the holes and then hit his speed when he can. It's special, and I think that's something that really stands out with this Seattle offense, is that there's difference makers all across the field.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest difference maker, and I like, look, yes, JSN is their guy. I still think their guy is different from their difference maker. And I think Rashid Shaheed is their difference maker because throughout this entire playoffs, he has made literally, I think he is a difference from them winning and losing some of these games. And I think this dates back probably even further, like since they traded for him. But I think the last Ram game where you could literally see it, where it's like, all right, he returns that punt, that makes a difference and kickstarts their return. Even in a game like this where he has just one catch, it was a 51-yard catch, and I think that instantly can swing the momentum for them. And we saw that where things get going, and it's like, all right, he had one catch, but it was 50 yards, and that type of thing really impacts the game. And his speed and his threat really opens up a lot more for JSN as well as a play caller where you're like, all right, how can I get creative? Like, I have obviously this phenomenal route runner and receiver in JSN, but I really want to, stretch the field and like, make Shaheed an option. And I think even if he's not getting targets, he's still a difference maker for this team because defenses have to constantly worry about his speed.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, his speed is deadly, so you constantly have to be aware. And they talked about in the broadcast, like they've been trying to set up shots with him and Darnold, like since he got there. But obviously, you get a like mid-season acquisition like that, it's hard to get on the same page right away. But it felt like this game they were finally on the same page. I mean, they had that one deep shot that was a great play for the Seahawks because of Shaheed. It was funny though when you were talking about like, oh, who's the real? I thought you were going to say Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was amazing in this game. There was one sequence on the touchdown drive that he had. Someone mentioned this. They're like, that was the most Cooper Kupp drive you'll ever see, where it was like he got a key third down conversion where he had to like reach for the chains, and then the very next play he makes a key block which helps him move down the field again, and then he gets a touchdown. I was like, that's just classic Cooper Kupp, and he was right there, and then he's going against his former team that released him, or he thought he would be able to stay with them, and then he goes to his home state with Seattle.
Did you see the time out? Did you see the story about like what had actually happened with that, or at least the whole? Let me pull it up.
I didn't see the full details, but I just saw him talking about it like after the game, talking about like to the fact that he was released by them and he still has love for the team, but now he's here. He beat them to go to the Super Bowl. But I mean, while you're looking at it, Cooper Kupp was.
So the Rams urged Cooper Kupp to retire from football before they cut him, and even warned teams about paying him anything more than the veteran minimum in free agency. And this all came from Mike Silver. The Seahawks ignored it and gave him a 3-year, $45 million deal. And now he's scoring a touchdown against the Rams to lead them to the Super Bowl.
That's kind of become a lot of the story of the Seahawks. I mean, think about Sam Darnold, right? This is kind of like the island of misfit toys, right? You got Sam Darnold, who's been thrown away by different franchises, started with the Jets. You have Cooper Kupp, who, like you just said, what happened to him. And then think about, like, even DeMarcus Lawrence. DeMarcus Lawrence called his shot. Like, he called his shot.
Everyone called that crazy. To be fair, I did too. So
it was kind of wild to go to the Seahawks way that.
They'll be a decent playoff team. I don't know about Super Bowl, but
yeah. I mean, just the fact that like he called his shot when he got to the Seahawks, talking about like like blah blah Super Bowl things like that, and Micah Parsons like and then he ends up being a key contributor on the D line of one of the best defenses in the league that is now in the Super Bowl. So really cool like stories across the board with the Seahawks with guys like this, honestly. And then maybe this is a way for me to transition to talk about this defense, which. Good God. This defense has my heart. That was my first note. I was just like, I'm in love with this defense and Mike McDonald, I think. Let me start with my bread and butter, my favorite players of like position. Witherspoon and Eamon Wari are an insane duo.
How long is it going to take him for you to mention Eamon Wari?
Dude, he might be better than like he might be one of the best DBs in football already. Like this guy is. I'm trying hard not to like curse too much about talk about him because I'm so excited. He's fucking insane, man. Like he's so good. And it's not just it's the run fits, it's the way he crashes downhill and he'll make plays on that. I mean, look at the thing about like this game. There was a sequence where it was like, oh, Eamon Wari got a pass breakup. Oh, Eamon Wari got a tackle for loss. Oh, Eamon Wari got like he was shutting down drives by himself, making plays and pass breakups. And it would be like one play you would see him carry and cover Devontae Adams perfectly down the field as a 6'3", by the way. He's a 6'3" rookie safety who's like a big dude who was able to carry and cover Devontae Adams downfield because of how physically gifted and athletic he is. But then on the other flip side, you'll see him make a tackle for loss where he's blowing somebody up or blowing up a screen. And you're just like, holy shit, like what can't this guy do? And I really don't know. Like what can't he do? I don't know. He's been sensational. And then Witherspoon is right there with him doing a lot of the same stuff. So it's like you have that tandem right there. And it's beautiful to watch, man, when you have chess pieces like that. He is absolutely insane. There was a stat on him I wanted to point out. Eamon Wari faced 5 targets in coverage against the Rams and allowed just 2 catches for 8 yards. He had 3 pass breakups, and every single throw was in a tight window that he was guarding. So even if you are getting a catch on him, you're not going anywhere. And he allowed less than 10 yards this game on passes. So he's just nuts. And then, like I said, we have the D-line, DeMarcus Lawrence, we just talked about, who has been a machine for them, man. Like, he has been like causing absolute chaos every game for them. But then you have other guys like Logan Hall and Ernest Jones. And look, I know Tariq Woolen had like an all-time blunder in this game, but like he's genuinely been like playing well. Besides all that, like the random mishaps that happen like that.
one really bad drive, which will stand out. And I think that's the thing is that right, like, and it's like the DB curse is that like you can play great all game and then have one bad drive and everyone's like, oh my god, he's garbage. Like, and I was looking, and yes, it was a bonehead decision to and they you could
Can,
literally hear the commentators voice be like, it was fourth down, like you had
can I ask you though? Do you agree with that penalty? The
the
taunting one,
it's okay. So
because he makes a huge play, by the way, to
so
like undercut that route and cause a pass breakup.
my thing is I don't. I'll say I don't, but I do understand it to some degree where it's like, well, he's directing it towards the Rams bench, and I think that's the explanation that they had broken down with. Well, he's directing it towards the Rams bench, and I was like, yeah, I can understand that. If it's one of the things where he's like running and he's pumping out the crowd, especially the Seattle crowd, like either way, you're pumping up the crowd. But I think yes, like in those moments, like it would just be wise to turn to the other side, away from the opponent bench and do it. But then I think I think what like I was like, all right, like it was a dumb play. All right, go make up for it. And then to see him get, and yes, like Puka Nacua is Puka Nacua. But to still, it looks difficult to defend you when you instantly the next play get fried by Cooper Cup. Not Cooper Cup. Puka,
Devontae Adams, or was it Puka? No, it was Puka for that touchdown, right?
yeah, Puka
Which,
Nacua.
like, classic, like, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. The DB made a horrible mistake, whether it be a penalty or a bad play, and then you immediately go after him, like, the next play. That is exactly what you're supposed to do. I mean, it's a tough situation to be as a DB. Personally, I think I hate this penalty for two reasons. I hate it that it's called because he's talking shit to the sideline. Everybody does it. The
Yeah.
problem was is that he started talking shit as the ref was right on him, and you even see the ref kind of like direct him away, being like, "Hey, like chill out." And then he kept going. That's the egregious part of me. Is like he kept going after the ref was like walk away. But at the same time, what a stupid NFL penalty, man. Like
I
you gotta like it. He didn't do anything egregious. He wasn't making any motions. He wasn't, what I'm saying, like he wasn't like flipping them off or anything like that. He was just talking, and like he was kind of going away. It felt like such a like a. I almost said a bad word. It just felt like such a lame penalty to call in that moment, especially.
the only reason I say I agree with it is because I understand the current NFL product they're right now and why that would be a penalty. And it's like,
Yeah,
well,
how
like
dare this guy talk shit to a team where you can't actually hear what he is saying as a fan, right? Or on TV, you cannot hear what this man is saying. But God forbid he says some words to the sideline, and then we cut to commercial and we've got four different gambling companies talking about how to bet on who like the next like mayor of a city is. But yeah, whatever. Let's be focused on him saying some words we can't hear to the sideline. That's my whatever.
like I understand it from the point of like, well, like knowing the current NFL product, like, well, they're going to be more aggressive and they're going to be looking at these things. Like, all right, you got to be smarter about it. But yes, typically I'm like, go for it, go wild. It's a playoff game, especially against a division rival. Like these are things that
Yeah,
like
the emotions are high. It's a game to go to the Super Bowl against a division rival. It's gonna get chippy.
that's
All
why
right.
I'm like, oh, all right, I understand.
Yeah. All right. So I mean, look, I could talk about the Seahawks defense. We're going to be talking about them more, so we don't have to focus on it too much as we go to the Super Bowl. But we do have to talk about Matthew Stafford and this offense and how, like, they did have a good game. You put up 27 points on what is, in my mind, a top two defense in the NFL. It was between them or the Texans in my mind. But Stafford is just elite, man. Like this is why I think he should win the MVP because of like he's been like this all year for the most part. There was that 3-play drive he had where it was just pass, pass, pass. Like, and the third pass was a touchdown. Every single throw he made was just nuts. Like, there's only so many quarterbacks in the league who can make the throws that he does, like layering it over DBs who are undercutting. Even if it was a bad move, like he's putting it right over people's hands to his tight ends, Puka, whoever it is downfield. There was one play to Puka who was also fantastic in this game, where it was an end breaker, like 10 yards in, and there was like four DBs or just four defenders around Puka. And the anticipation that Matthew Stafford had to throw with while also manipulating the safety and the linebacker, it's just there's not that many quarterbacks that can make plays like these in those kind of tight windows. And he's creating open windows for himself with what he's able to do in the pocket with his eyes. And it's such a like, it feels like at times it's a lost art in the NFL when you see guys like Matthew Stafford do what they do. And a lot of that comes from experience. Like, look, he was in hell in Detroit for a long time, but he continued to progress his game. The talent was always there, but like when you see he's 37, about to turn 38 years old, and with that comes the experience. He always had the elite talent, but it's just seeing all that come together and watching a quarterback operate an offense the way he does is just you have to appreciate it while you can because and I'm not saying quarterbacks are getting worse, we'll never see a guy like this again, but while you have Matthew Stafford in the league, it's just when you see him play games like this, you're just like, good God. I mean, the tight window throws, he's able to hit deep shots. He hit a lot of deep shots this game, and they were really successful play action this game. And I know we're saying all this after glazing, the Seahawks defense, but Matthew Stafford was genuinely like elite in this game, and he had to be because of how good the Seahawks defenders are. His receivers weren't open most of the time this game; they just weren't. But Matthew Stafford was throwing them into tight windows and getting the ball to them anyways. It was just, I just entirely impressive, man. He had 226 according to NGS. He had 226 deep passing yards, which is the third highest mark by a defense in any game in the last decade. He's just he's insane, man. You had over 200 yards in deep passes. It's fantastic, and it was awesome to watch.
Yeah, I think you mentioned them not being open, like the receivers not being able to get open, but I still think like they were impressive still, and I think we saw that where Puka Nacua 9 catches for 165 yards and a touchdown, Devontae Adams 4 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. Like we wanted to credit that like they were still able to get open against this amazing Seattle defense, but two, like being able to capitalize and really take advantage because one of the things we had talked about with Seattle coming into this game was that you can go 80 yards on them, but they are difficult to score on in the red zone, difficult to take advantage of. And I think the Rams did a great job of that, whether it was Puka, whether it was Devontae Adams, where they're calling their shots and like being like, all right, cool, like we're not afraid to go at you and do it all game, do it consistently. And I think that's what made this game so interesting and made this game so close, where it's like you couldn't count the Rams out because they're constantly going down, being like, all right, like this moment isn't too big, and a big part of that is Matthew Stafford, and I still think he's the MVP. A lot of people have been saying Drake May recently, but like, I mean, like, yes, he lost 374 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like I'm not looking at this and saying, well, Matthew Stafford lost his game. It was Seattle won this game and did what they needed to do.
100%. If you want to point to what lost the Rams this game, I would point to something we talked about: their special teams messing up again. That play where it was Gibson, he had to go like full, like he was fully horizontal on the ground, like on his back, couldn't catch the punt, and then that leads to a turnover, and Seattle scores. Right, that ended up being like one of the biggest plays of the game right there for you. And again, that's a special teams blunder for a team that we saw in the beginning of the year, like against the Eagles when they get a blocked field goal that loses them a game. And then they had to fire their special teams coordinator, and then now here we are, end of the season. Well, one of the biggest reasons they lose is because of their special teams not being able to hold on to the ball, basically. And then also their defense. The main thing, when we talk about this a lot throughout the year with the Rams, and I kind of already mentioned it earlier, the corners, Forbes, who didn't even start this game, but he was playing more in the second half. And then Durant, who I think is a solid corner, but these are smaller, thinner corners, right? And what the Seahawks can do is they can be physical. JSN has all the athleticism, speed, and all that. He's not the most physically imposing guy, but he can still make contested catches. I mean, look at that like deep pass he caught. But then you have guys like Bobo, Barner, Kenneth Walker, Cooper Kupp, who can just out-physical these corners. And if you're putting them on an island, which Clint Kubiak did a great job of scheming this up, like you said, he's putting the safeties and the linebackers in spots they don't want to be, right? He's making them make decisions on who to go after. But then you're creating one-on-one opportunities with your bigger and more talented receivers against these smaller corners. And that's just barbecue chicken alert to me if you're setting that up, honestly. So fantastic job all around, like coaching Mike McDonald and Clint Kubiak. They stayed aggressive the whole game, which I love. Something we complain about a lot with teams, even good or bad, is they get that lead and they start to play more conservative. The Seahawks didn't play conservative. Yeah, that was the biggest complaint about the Eagles all year. But the Seahawks they stayed aggressive. They kept that foot on the pedal all game. And it's why this team is in the Super Bowl, man. They stay aggressive. They buy into that mentality. And you see, they have a belief. It's the defense being completely in sync. You see the D-lineman. If one person messes up, the other steps up and fills that role, and they're still able to disrupt the play even if someone messes up. It's on offense where the motion, everything. It's a lot going on pre-snap, but you're able to execute it exactly the way you need to, and it results in a game like this, and it results in a team that is now able to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think another thing, and this is the final thing I have to say, is that taking advantage. And you mentioned the Xavier Smith fumble, and I look at that and I'm like, all right, like that is a moment that if Seattle doesn't score on or doesn't take advantage of, like that could that's the a difference maker in this game where it's like it swings the momentum if the Rams get a goal line stop. It's like, all right, we made a mistake, or our special teams made a mistake. Let's go out there and fix this for them. And it was something that Seattle took advantage of. And once again, talk about things that make a team's pedigree, and especially a Super Bowl pedigree. And that's one of those things, taking advantage of mistakes and really, just doing what you can to win these games.
Yeah, and I'll we'll finish it here, but unless you have more to say, I'll just say for the Rams, we'll do more of a post mortem in a different show, but there's going to be an interesting question: does Stafford come back? Because they're going to have to pay him if he does come back. And then also, what do you do in the offseason? This team, I expect to still be like in a position like this again next year where they're fighting for the Super Bowl, because they have 2 first-round picks, by the way, if you remember. They have their own and the Falcons.
Yeah.
And so if you want to attack the corner position, look, you've got an offseason and the ability to do it, and I think pretty much a decent amount of cap space. So really interesting to see where the Rams are again this time next year. But all right, anything else you want to say about this game?
Nope.
All right. Also, shout out to the reporter who asked Sean McVay after the game, do you want Matthew Stafford back? Fantastic. Just amazing across the board. He had the response you'd expect him to have. All right. Let's move on to some more news within the NFL, specifically with we're actually going to move on to some, I was going to say coaching changes. We're going to talk about something first. The NFL, I don't even know how to introduce this. We always talk in the NBA about the All-Star game and how they've kind of like watered down and messed up the All-Star game. I mean, it is messed up. It's not like it's not in a process. It's like a dead horse that they keep beating, the NBA with the All-Star game. But the same could be said about the NFL and the Pro Bowl. It has progressively gotten worse over the past decade, to the point, I would say even further back than that, to the point where it's not a serious thing anymore. It's not something that people really care about anymore that has much meaning, right? If you hear Pro Bowler now, it just plainly doesn't carry the same weight that it used to. And why we bring this up is because Shedeur Sanders was named a Pro Bowler this week or yesterday because of, certain players not going to, injured, whatever it was. He had to fill in a spot in the Pro Bowl, but it's like a guy who started didn't even start like half the year, who didn't have like really impressive numbers, right, as a rookie, and now he's in the Pro Bowl because it's just the most unserious thing. It feels like now.
More interceptions than touchdowns, and he's going to be in the Pro Bowl.
It just, I can't believe what it's become now, man. Like, what now even is the point of the Pro Bowl? Like, if you hear Pro Bowler now, like, back in the day, you'd be like, Pro Bowler Ray Lewis or somewhere, like, someone like that. And you'd be like, oh, wow, yeah, like, he's top of the top in his position, and that's why he's here. Now it's just like, I don't know, who can come off the bench and play in the scrimmage that we have every year.
We used to use Pro Bowl as like a genuine like benchmark for like not only players in the league but also comparing players when it's time for Hall of Fame. And it's like, all right, well, this player has this many Pro Bowls, and it's like, well, like, does it really, like, where do you evaluate and say like, yes, this player has a Pro Bowl, but I mean, like. And this is the thing, is that yes, he's technically like replacing a starter, and I know like they had like Stu Huntley in it a couple years ago.
Last year.
Yeah, it's mostly just because of like people just not wanting to do it, and I think like it's the same way with the NBA. But I and this is the thing that is like I'll always kind of applaud the NBA for, is at least like acknowledging, hey, this thing kind of sucks. Like, let's keep workshopping it and trying to get at it. And I think And yes, like the NFL has done that in some degree, like where they're trying to do these special little games where there's the best catch and
dodgeball. They're inviting guys to go play dodgeball in Orlando, Florida.
I will say the dodgeball is pretty cool. I think the dodgeball is pretty cool.
I think also my biggest complaint is it's still held. Are they still doing it in Orlando?
Yes, yeah.
It's like whatever.
But I do agree. Like the one that comes to mind, and I remember this a couple years ago. I don't know if it was Justin Jefferson that they had like that. He was like, what is it? It was like the best catch thing, and they would have them do like these elaborate like Dude Perfect style catches where they're like, oh,
Yeah,
you
they
have,
like drop a ball from a crane or
you have this
something and you
zip
catch
line,
it.
and, like
Yeah.
you throw it to you, you got to catch it from there, and I'm like, all right, like that's dumb. But I think the dodgeball like was it's something fun, and even the what's it called the I guess technically like a I don't say relay race, but like a the way they have the different skill positions do different things. Like, all right, you push the sled this far, and then you take over, and we'll see the running back do. Like, I think that's like fun stuff and innovative, but the actual product and the actual Pro Bowl game itself is just not good. And I think like it's that, but also then you get to the situation of like players not wanting to do it, and then we have to keep digging and say, all right, who's next, who's next, who's next, and then you end up with Shador Sanders in there, and yes, it is like a popular vote type of thing, which I've seen the most complaining about, but at the same time, it's like I get it from an NFL standpoint where it's like, all right, you kind of want to get eyes in there, like this is a good opportunity.
I just it's the same thing with the NBA too. It's like, how do you fix this? Like, I really, at least with the NBA, you can point to just like, hey, can you guys just put some effort in and play? And maybe our Lord and Savior Wembanyama will fix this because of the way he's been talking about it. But I don't know how you fix a Pro Bowl at this point. Like, because I feel like if you told the players like, hey, we're coming here, we're gonna play some football. I don't know, like, I don't think they'd go full out. Like, I don't know if like ever since like 15 years ago, no one's really gone full out in the Pro Bowl. But yeah, it's almost like a disgrace to me at this point.
Yeah, I've seen a couple people say like bring back tackling and stuff, and it's like I like the idea of a flag football game. And like to be fair, because especially it was becoming that essentially, and it was the same people who were like, "Well, just make it a flag football game." And NFL said, "Okay, I guess we will." Like nobody's going to tackle each other.
Well,
Like
then, at this point, if it's going to be a flag football game, have them compete against professional flag football players who are also trying to compete to participate in the Olympics, and then maybe you go, we'll create an NFL flag football team that could be good for the Olympics, and we'll go against people who are like actual professional flag football players who also want to be in the Olympics. Have them play each other. Screw it at that point, right? If that's what we're going to do.
yeah.
Like, make it actually competitive. Can you imagine Justin Jefferson out there going like, who the hell is this scrub cover me in flag football? But then he's like struggling because like he would probably be able to get open. But yeah, it's like, can you imagine the frustration on an NFL player's like face if they get their flag pulled by some like what they would consider like an average Joe compared to them? Like, that would be so funny. And like, at least it would probably give you a little bit more entertainment. I don't know. It's just
It's a difficult position, and I think like you said it best, where it's like I think the NBA All Star Game is in a much better place because like one like I think even their mini like I don't say mini games, but the separate skill games that kind of accompany the weekend where it's a 3-point contest. Like I think that's still a great opportunity, especially because we see so many great 3-pointers, great 3-point shooters. Dunk contests, like oh, at past couple of years, it's been a lot better because of I'm literally blanking, but he just came out and said he's not doing it this year. Mac McClung,
yeah.
like he's literally like revived the dunk contest, but like it's literally like every time this year they're like, all right, like where's Mac McClung? He's still in the G League. All right, bring him up. Like we'll he'll get signed to a roster. He needs to be in the dunk contest, and I'm kind of glad this year that he came out. I was like, I'm not doing it, like because it literally feels like it's every year. It's like, well, he's not on a roster. All right, put him on the roster for a 10-day, and then bring him to the All Star game because we need the the thing. And I think he's done enough league work where I think people that hopefully like NBA players see it and be like, well, like because you had John Morant come out and say like, oh, like this we need to get back at it. Like
Well, that's maybe not the best spokesperson for it.
But like in terms of like dunkers, I'm like, oh, that means something, even if it isn't the John Morant 2-3 years ago. But
Yeah.
I think once again the NBA is headed in the right direction of constantly trying to innovate and constantly getting people who can kickstart people to want to be like, all right, like, what are we doing out there? Like we need you got Wemby and then like, kind of Mac McClung doing the whole dunk contest thing. Like I think that works. Even I like the rookie showcases that they begin to do, and being able to spotlight some of the G League players. Like I think especially that like that's a cool opportunity where it's like, yes, it's the rising stars, it's the rookies, the sophomores, but then you also get to see G League players, and I think that
I do like that.
And like and you mentioned like trying to like use your connections. Like I think that's a great opportunity where it's like shit. Like we got a bunch of G League players who are like they're right there in a sense, but like they need more publicity, and this could be like someone's opportunity to be like, oh, you you went out there and scored, I don't know, 20 against Stephon Castle. Like, well, you'll get a shot at a roster. Like, it means something.
Yeah, but that's something we can. Well, I'm sure we'll have a conversation about this when the All-Star weekend comes up. But going back to football with this, yeah. So this news broke yesterday. Everyone freaked out, and rightfully so. We're berating the NFL and how unserious the Pro Bowl is now. But then the NFL follows that up a day later with other news about the voting for the Hall of Fame has started, right? And this was the first year that Bill Belichick was eligible to go into the Hall of Fame, right? He would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. Except he's not, according to the voters of the Hall of Fame. Bill Belichick, who has 6 Super Bowls as a head coach, 2 as a coordinator when he was with the Giants. So he has 8 Super Bowl rings to his name. And, he led the Patriots dynasty and all that. He was not put into the Hall of Fame as a first ballot. And so, I mean, you could say what you want about Bill Belichick and however you feel about the Patriots dynasty for that 20 years, whatever it was. He deserved to be. I don't understand how this isn't a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. And there was talks, like I read the reporting from ESPN, and it's guys like, in there who are like, there's rumors. I don't know if any of this is actually confirmed, but like you have people like Bill Polian, who was obviously not a biggest fan of the Patriots and Bill Belichick and all those guys from his time with the Colts, saying like there's stuff they're saying like, oh, well, because of Spygate and Deflategate and things like that, and whatever other reasons that he's going to have to wait a year to get into the Hall of Fame. Okay, so then is Tom Brady going to have to wait a year to get into the Hall of Fame as well? Like, are we going to and Robert Kraft, who has some other off the field stuff that I could also understand would keep him back, but Belichick and Tom Brady especially, like I don't understand how they wouldn't be first ballot Hall of Famers. It hasn't happened to Brady yet, obviously, but this is just, it makes no sense. And to me, it just denigrates the Hall of Fame a little bit. A place that I got to visit last year and it was awesome. But then you hear stuff about like this, and you're like, it's kind of like when the college stuff comes up with the voting for certain things. It's like, who the hell is making these decisions, and how does this happen? It just, I can't find anybody online who agrees with this unless they're just the biggest Bill Belichick hater.
Yeah, as someone who hates the Patriots dynasty, it's baffling. I think it really is. And look, he finished with an NFL coaching record of 333 and 178, and including playoff victories and career victories, he was only second to Don Shula, who had 347. Like there is, as much as you can say like, oh, I hated what the Patriots stood for. I hated the Deflategate. I hated all the other controversies and everything that happened over my entire lifespan of being on this earth.
When they say there's 6-year-olds who haven't seen the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
I still think it's a baffling decision to sit here and say like Bill Belichick isn't a first ballot Hall of Famer because of politics. And look, I understand it, right? Like you can say like, oh yeah, like we chose this as a punishment, but like what, like is this really a punishment if we all know he's just going to get put in the next year? Like, and I think that's why I look at it and like it's like, well, like that's cool. Like he can wait a year. Like he's got nothing but time. Well, hopefully, I wish him the best. I hope I didn't just set his clock. But like I just think it's a baffling decision to sit here and say that Bill Belichick is the first ballot Hall of Famer. And yes, a lot of shit has happened throughout his tenure there. None of it is enough to take away what he's done with the Patriots dynasty.
Exactly. I think that's exactly right. Yeah. It's so baffling that this happened. And I have to feel like there's got to be some kind of PR response to this from Goodell or whoever else is involved with the Hall of Fame. Like whoever it is, like I got to see what their response is to this, of like what their explanation is.
So a spokesperson for the Hall, this is from ESPN and the article about it. They said a spokesperson for the Hall provided a statement, and in this statement it says the Pro Football Hall of Fame does not comment on the voting of the selection committee, and awaits the unveiling of the class of 2026 at NFL Honors on February 5th in San Francisco. So basically, like we don't got nothing to do with this. Y'all gonna have to wait till it unveils and then talk to the voters, which. Look,
well, then you also have to think, like, who gets in over him?
Yes. And this is another thing, is that, right, like, from what we're hearing, and yes, obviously a lot of this is alleged, and there's a lot of people saying, well, it was this person that came out and, like, was, like, strongly against it. Like, I'm trying to imagine like a like a situation of like them all sitting at like probably on Zoom since they don't need to get together anymore. Sitting on Zoom and Bill Belichick's name comes up and they're like, all right, like we're all going first ballot, right? Like he's easily in, and then there's some
Yeah,
people
and
like,
then Tony Dungy and Bill Polian are like, well, actually,
yeah, like I don't think so. And it's like, well, why? And they're like, well, we should punish him. And then enough people were able to like be swayed where it like they're like, oh yeah, like we agree, like and the thing that we've seen is that it's politics to keep him out because he needs to be punished. And I will once again draw back on the fact that like, how are you punishing him if he literally is going to get in the next year? Like they're and especially
he's a guaranteed Hall of Famer.
and considering the backlash that you're getting this year, like when we're talking about this next year, we see that like they're starting to release the people. If he's not on there, like, and it's going to get worse and worse every time because it's like, all right, like you're being petty, like, and it isn't it only negatively affects the Hall of Fame and the voters to say like you're losing your credibility if you're going to continue to be petty about this decision.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point because, like, think about even if he does get in next year, what's the entire conversation now going to be about Belichick? Like, oh, well, he should have already been in. Like, why are we hearing him make this speech about going into the Hall of Fame a year late? It's going to be the narrative now the entire time, and it's going to be a bad look for the Hall of Fame. And part of me hopes, like I said, I'm not as a person, I'm not the biggest fan of Bill Belichick, but like as a coach, he is legendary. Like he is one of the greatest coaches. You could argue the greatest coach in NFL history. And so a part of me is hoping that when he goes up there and talks for his Hall of Fame speech, I hope he mentions this. I hope he's like, I should have been here a year before. Like, it's just, whatever, man. It's a bad look. It's a really bad look for the NFL.
Yeah.
Right.
So and this is the final thing I said that like I'll add that kind of gives credence to what we've been saying about the whole cheating stuff. And they so they couldn't get Polian. He said he did not immediately respond to a request for comment. But they got a veteran Hall voter who told ESPN the only explanation for the outcome was the cheating stuff. It really bothered some of the guys, which
Was it cheating?
put your ego to the side and look each other in the face and say Bill Belichick is a Hall of Famer and there's nothing we can do about it.
Can I say something too? God,
Well,
I
mean,
cannot believe I'm somewhat defending the Patriots right now. Like, ugh, I feel gross doing this. Was Deflategate over exaggerated just because they were the Patriots? Like, was it really that fucking bad?
I mean,
Like, bad enough that he has to get punished like this? Hell no.
I can understand to some people where they're like, it's disgraceful for the game, and especially an all time great like Bill Belichick. It is dumb, but at the same time, I do agree with you that it is overblown a little bit because it is the Patriots. Like I think like people naturally were waiting for them to fall and like the looking for any chips in the armor, and then the one time they got it, they were like, all right, like there we go. This is the reason why it's all their success. Like they're not going to be the same without this. And then we saw them constantly find ways to reinvent themselves and constantly be better. And that's what I think. Like, yes, like it is kind of a stain. And I think some of the NFL and some of the NFL players and coaches or former players and coaches will look at it and say like, well, like it's a disgraceful stain on the game. At the same time, though, it doesn't take away all of the everything that they've done. But it's also Deflategate and then there's Spygate. So there's a lot to it. But at the end of the day, Bill Belichick should be a Hall of Famer, and then you can talk about it all you want while you're inducting him and saying, well, this did happen. So, like using this as a ploy to be like, oh, well, this is the reason we're doing this is just dumb.
Yeah, and there's a whole other conversation we had about like, okay, well, if you're gonna keep someone out of the Hall of Fame for stuff like this, then are you gonna evaluate other players who are involved in stuff?
There's gonna be a couple people coming up where you're gonna be like, well,
And when you think about people who are already in, like Brett Favre was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2016. Like, do they take people out of the Hall of Fame? Like, are we going to reconsider what he did as like a reason to not? I just, and I know that's like not football related, but it's still just like, I don't know, man. It's just, I hate it. It's dumb, and we're definitely not in the minority when we think this. So,
yeah.
All right, let's move on. Jesus, what happened to the game I love? All right, more coaching changes have happened. Since the last time we talked. I feel like this is going to be a common thing each week we talk until, I don't know, like, well, the Browns might be searching for a head coach until the summer, but we'll see what happens there. So we'll talk about. There were two new head coaching hires, and then a couple of coordinator things to talk about as well. So we'll start with the Bills, who we talked about a lot last week, and how confusing everything that has been going on with them is. Like, you fire, we rationalized, we understood why Sean McDermott was let go. Like, we could, there was a way for us to understand why that happened. What we didn't understand was the promotion of Brandon Bean, who was still the GM, but he's also like president or whatever now. He's got a whole other upgraded, promoted title now as well. So you get rid of Sean McDermott, you promote the GM who put together this lackluster roster, especially in certain areas where you needed it to be a bit better, like for example receiver. But then now they hired Joe Brady to be their head coach, who was the offensive coordinator of your team. So you got rid of your head coach, you promoted the GM, who was kind of like seeming to me one of the biggest reasons why your team is the way it is, and then you promote your offensive. So all of this was basically just like, hey, just get rid of Sean McDermott. It feels like, and I'll speak on Joe Brady first. I do like him as an offensive play caller. I think at times, like, there are people who are upset with him and how he has called this offense at times, but I also think he was hamstrung by what the GM who got promoted did to create this team. Like, there's only so much you can do when you have a mid to less than mid receiver room, right? And that's why, like, okay, but then you can point at Joe Brady, what he was able to do with the run game, right? Like, look, last season, despite what you might think about it or not, he was still a legit MVP contender. But Josh Allen won MVP under this guy as his offensive play caller. And then this year, he has the leading rusher in the league with James Cook. So clearly he can do something right there. And then maybe if you get some better players in there on offense, like in the receiver room, you can make this look a lot better, because we've seen what Joe Brady can do in the past as a coordinator with different weapons. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on this hire? Because just the way the Bills have gone about this entirely, throwing their coach under the bus, but then promoting the coordinator to take his spot, is just so weird to me.
So my thing is, and I think this is the biggest thing, and kind of getting reporting from it, is that familiarity plays a big decision maker in a process like this. And I understand it, and that's why I like the decision of promoting Joe Brady, where it's like, all right, like, he has familiarity with Josh Allen. You don't have to worry about trying to find somebody who can, especially if considering, and we talked about this, I think, and I said this last week, where I think the decision to get away from McDermott was really like, Josh Allen is crying post game. We need to make a decision to continue to make sure that he's still on board with what we're planning here. Somebody needs to get fired. Somebody needs to be gone. And oh, look, we got somebody who we can pin everything on, and all the drafting issues on him as if it isn't our fault. And that's why, yes, that's messy, but I do like that Joe Brady is one of the positives to come out of this, because you think about all he's done for the Bills offense, and really being able to continue to improve and make Josh Allen, take that next leap to being an MVP. Well, he was kind of MVP caliber before, but like continuing to further that. And I think so many times, like, so many times when we see an offensive coordinator be given the keys to great offenses and great players, we see things kind of go downhill. And it's difficult to, as easy as it may seem, oh, I have Lamar Jackson, I have Josh Allen, I have Jalen Hurts, I can go out there and draw up whatever. You can't. It is a lot more difficult and complex than that. And I think he should be given credit for being able to work with not just Josh Allen, but being able to develop a James Cook, who we saw the potential. We saw how good he could be. And yes, there's still some issues. The fumbling is a big thing, but like, he's really taken that next leap to being one of the premier running backs in the NFL. And that's a lot to Joe Brady.
100%. Is he still going to call plays? Because there was a reporting that like they were really impressed with him, like as being like the CEO type head coach. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, they mentioned it multiple times. The CEO thing came up multiple times, and I was like, okay, so is he still going to call plays? Because to me, that would be one of the biggest benefits. Like, that'd be one of the biggest benefits of having Joe Brady, is like, he's your play caller. So are they just going to have him design the offense but not call it now? Then who steps up and does that? Who's their defensive coordinator going to be? It'd be really funny. It would be the funniest fucking thing ever if they kept their defensive coordinator as well. That would be just hilarious to me. But I mean, that's Babbage. We'll see what happens. But I feel like Josh Allen has, and this is the biggest thing for me with this. This feels like they're still just all in and I know I'm not saying they're wrong for this. They're just all in on Josh Allen, and they think that he can fix everything because of how talented he is, which is kind of the approach they've taken with all this for the past few years now. So it seems like they're just leaning even further into that, which is a big bet to take. But it felt like it would have been nicer for them to have some like different voices in there at the very least to help like jumpstart something else or bring a different element to this.
And I mean, like, you can still do that with an offensive coordinator. And I think that's what I like. That's the one thing I'll look at this and say, like, I understand if you wanted to have, like, especially if you want to just keep Joe Brady as the CEO type and you're really, proud of what he can do in that area. All right, bring a different defensive or offensive mind, excuse me, where you can kind of mix things up and try to do different things with Josh Allen and see, like, what you can get the most out of him. Like, yes, we have seen him excel in this, but, like, and yes, the biggest caveat to all of this, and we can sit here and speculate and say, oh, like, a new offensive coordinator who could do all this. You need to go out and draft and attack your receiving core in the free agency to improve it and make sure that it can you're not relying on a first rounder to immediately take that next step in Keon Coleman. Give him time to continue to develop, and I think like he's going into year 3. I think the expectations are at this highest, especially the way his own organization is talking about him, but I still look at this and say you need to have another option, and it's very easy to say that, but like it really will make or break how much you're going to be able to rely on Josh Allen and say go out there and be Josh Allen for us.
So and then my question with this is, you keep your offensive coordinator. If you lose in the playoffs again next year, then what? Are we throwing him under the bus, or are we saying, oh, it's only his first year, we're going to keep moving on, and then 4 years from now we're in the same exact spot? Like that to me, that's just where it's at. It's like I don't know, and like I said, I'm a Joe Brady fan, and we don't know who's gonna be a head coach, right? Like a lot of this is like, we're just kind of trying to predict, but the Bills are a very confusing team this year. But let's move on to another confusing hire, I would say a more confusing hire, and that would be the Steelers, who hired local man Mike McCarthy to be their head coach. Literally in my notes, I had Joe Brady as the new Bills head coach. ... Okay, and then I said Mike McCarthy is the new Steelers head coach. What the hell? Like, what is? And then he's already come out and said in his introductory press conference that he would love to have Aaron Rodgers back with the Steelers. So, I don't get it. Why are we bringing in Mike McCarthy? My initial reaction was like, one, it felt predictable because it felt like everything they were saying afterwards. It was like, oh my God, they're gonna go and hire Mike McCarthy. And they're like, oh, a Yinzer, like we get a Pittsburgh guy in here to coach a Pittsburgh team, and he's got this pedigree where he's got a Super Bowl. It's like, okay, but what did he do recently with the Cowboys, where he lied to them about the prep work he did at his own introductory press conference, saying like, oh, like I watched the film on every game that happened. But then his first press conference, he goes, well, that was actually, I may have been lying a little bit on that. And then he goes with the Cowboys, and sure, he has some regular season success, but never able to really do anything in the playoffs. Typical Cowboys. The only team that has been in the NFC that has been in the NFC Championship like this century, I think. So what? I didn't mean to take I don't know. I think that was like there was like something in me that had to take a shot at the Cowboys there. Sorry, but yeah, going with the Steelers, I don't know what this hire does for your team. It felt like you needed like more juice than this. Like I don't know. And then if you bring back Brady or Rodgers, like the O-line is getting better. Your defense is fine, right? It's good. I don't know what you have outside of that when it comes to like your skill position players, because you had a lot of older guys and some other. I'll just say I didn't like this hire for the Steelers. Like Mike McCarthy doesn't inspire a lot of confidence.
So my whole issue with this is that I think we need to consider where the Steelers are at, and yes, like you talked a lot about the actual like personnel standpoint of all this. I think as a franchise and as an organization, like considering how many coaches that they've had, or how little coaches they've had for so long.
Is their fourth coach now?
Yeah, like fourth coach since the 90s, since before you were born. For people who are wondering,
all right.
Okay. So so looking at this, and this is my issue with this, is that why would you not go for a younger coach who can you can once again mold to be your next like generational guy, where he can develop something and really give him the keys and say, hey, we're in a transition period. You still have great players, but a lot of them are aging. There's a lot that needs to change. Like, I think it would have been so much more beneficial for the Steelers as an organization to say, all right, cool, let's go out and get a young guy, let's develop him, and let's really work to rebuild and reinvest in this roster, go in a different direction, and get us back to the Steelers that we think we can be. And I think it's a project that would have taken a couple of years. And it feels like with Mike McCarthy and bringing him in that it's more of a, all right, like we're trying to salvage what little we have left and say, go out there and try to maximize this window where you have a TJ Watt. You have still Cameron Hayward's like, 40 almost, but like he's still doing it. Like, it feels like, all right, like we have very little left and we want an experienced coach who can come in and try to take advantage of what little is left and push it as far as we can. When in reality, I really would have wanted them to say, hey, we understand our limitations. Let's take a step back. Let's enter a little bit of a rebuild and really kind of go from there.
Yeah, and it's just you mentioned this is just so different from what the Steelers normally do as well. That you think about it, they normally hire like young defensive guys. This is a guy in his 60s who's more offensive minded, and he's talking about bringing in a 42-year-old quarterback. So unless you're using Rodgers as like a bridge quarterback, and then the following year you finally take a swing at I don't know.
In my opinion, I think Rodgers is done. I like and maybe it's the language with how things that kind of ended like last season. Like it's a lot of like, and I understand like Rodgers' whole statement was like, if they want me to, I'll be here. And I think some familiarity with obviously winning a Super Bowl with McCarthy, you can say, well, he can try to get it out of him to play another year, but I think you're not really gaining anything from him playing another year. I think like and especially because of he's like, all right, like you drafted this rookie last year, like you should at least give him a shot, maybe even like these are type of things where I think the Steelers franchise is uncomfortable with going through uncomfortable moments and saying, all right, we're going to be struggling for a little bit and we'll go from there. And I think this is the whole like thing where it's like, all right, like Mike Tomlin in the winning seasons, I think it takes an effect where it's like, I'm not saying it's a negative effect where you're suffering from success, but I think like to some degree where it's like, oh, like we're constantly so used to winning and maximizing what little we have, where it's like it feels like that's all you know how to do. And instead of like taking a step back and say, hey, next 2 seasons aren't going to be the best, but the season after that will be a lot better. And I think it would have, like, once again, going back on the whole point of like, let's go get a young guy and see how he comes in, see how he can take this franchise in a different direction where it's like we are constantly going in the same way. We're constantly doing the same things. We're, getting the same coordinators and being so safe. Like, and yes, I understand, like, there is like a Steelers way, and I think historically they're one of the teams where it's like they stick to their formula of doing things a specific way, and this is why like I really just want to see something different from them, if that makes sense. And I think this would have been the perfect opportunity to say, hey, like we can do that. But I also understand where it's like you have a generational player like TJ Watt, and you're like, hey, we got to go do something with him and try to like push this to the max to see what we can get.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see from that perspective, bringing an offensive-minded guy which you don't normally do. Hopefully you get a younger guy in there and you think that this guy who has experience with, Hall of Fame and just very good quarterbacks in general can help develop whoever you bring in. But it's just at the same time, we've seen what this looked like recently. And so like it doesn't give me a lot of confidence going forward with a team and an offense that has less talent than I feel like that Cowboys offense did. Yeah. But it's the development aspect of it, I guess, is what you're hoping for. All right. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to another hire that happened. We have an offensive coordinator in Brian Dable, who was hired by the Titans to be their offensive coordinator. He'll be there with Robert Saleh, and he'll get to work with Cam Ward and that young and kind of, developing team over there, obviously. I kind of like this one.
I agree. I like this one, and especially considering trying to maximize Cam Ward. Hell, go all in and get him the guy
who can do a lot of Josh Allen type things.
Yep. Perfect opportunity to say, hey, like we really value Cam Ward. We got a defensive head coach, which this was the one thing that we said when they hired Saleh was like, all right, go get an offensive minded coach who can really work with work with Cam Ward. And what did they do? They followed the plan perfectly. They're listening to the matchup report. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but I like it. Really is just a such a positive sign of trust in Cam Ward that they're like, hey, we're getting a guy that we see has seen has has success in developing quarterbacks, and you're going to be the next guy that he can work with and get tutelage from, so that we can continue to make you this like everything that we think you're capable of. And we saw the flashes in your rookie season, and we could take advantage of it. And I think this is the literally the perfect fit for both sides, where it's like Dable's kind of in that in between area where it's like he obviously just was a head coach. It
Well,
was a
him and
job.
Salah both.
Yeah, like you kind of it's and I like it's funny that like I there's a lot that I've learned just like the past couple of years and becoming more deeper into being a sports like guy. Like I think it's one thing to be a sports guy, but another guy that really talk and understand sports from a different perspective. And I think one of the things is that like sometimes you just need to have a guy who like was a previous head coach and is taking that step back. And that's why we'll see like a
Mike McDaniels.
yeah, Mike McDaniels in LA, where it's like he has experience running a full team before, and he's taking that step back, and he'll get an offensive coordinator and job and just focus on that, because you can really see like how talented they are. And I think this is an opportunity where we're really going to see that. Yes, Dable maybe didn't work out, especially with the Giants, and hell, even Salah not working out with the Jets, but put him in a different situation, put him with different personnel, put him with away from the Jets franchise, put him away from New York, Jets, Giants, and see how they operate. And I think this will be the perfect opportunity for both Salah and Dable to really kind of work with Cam Ward, work with the defense, and just figure things out.
Yeah, I think he could do a lot of good things, and obviously they have a lot of work to do. But I think, that, like I said, I think the O line with the Titans was showing signs of being better by the end of the year. I think we both really believe in Cam Ward. They have a few pieces there with receivers where you could work with, whether it be DK or Iomanner, who I like. So it's like you're not starting exactly from zero. And I mean, think about Brian Dable, like his time with the Giants, where it was like the whole time he was there, he was trying to find a quarterback, and then when they seemingly find one, the jury's still out on Jackson Dart. Like it was just kind of like, okay, finally, but then he gets fired. It's like Jesus. So it's like to go into as an offensive coordinator into a position where like, hey, I already have a franchise quarterback and a few pieces to work with, where it's like we're not starting from scratch like the Raiders with the O line. I think that's pretty enticing. And I don't mean to make this about the Eagles, but of course, you live in Philly, and I being an Eagles fan and all that, like we're both Eagles fans. The reaction from Eagles Nation, I guess you'll call it, to this hire was kind of funny to me, where it was like, oh God, like they saw it as like a lot of people have been using this as to be an indictment against the Eagles and their franchise, and like, oh, none of these offensive coordinators want to work with us, whether it be because of Sirianni or the city itself or Jalen Hurts, and they're saying like, well, he can't throw with the middle of the field, which whatever. But let me just say this. I understand people saying that there was the Dable connection with Hurts because they were with each other in Bama and things like that, and this is supposed to be a high-powered offense. One, we don't know what the conversations are going on behind the scenes, and like, if the Eagles even offered him the job. But at the same time, I don't see this as being an indictment on the Eagles, because I get why Dable would want to go there for all the reasons that we just laid out. Why would you not, as an offensive coordinator, want to take on the challenge of like? And I know the Eagles are just in the Super Bowl. You could think like, well, you could just do that. But look, man, if I'm taking on that challenge as an offensive coordinator, and I believe in myself, and I think, look, I got this young quarterback who I think can be a franchise star in this league, and I have the chance to have full autonomy with this offense and be able to control everything about it and develop it how I want, because Robert Saleh is our CEO head coach, but he's also the defensive guy, and he's going to give me full reins of this offense. That's pretty enticing to me, man. Like that sounds like a good deal. And I really don't blame him for taking this opportunity, because it's something I would do too if I was in his position. Not that I would ever be in that position or I'm close to it at all, but like if I'm Dable, I would be excited about this opportunity.
That felt a little suspicious. Are you interviewing for the Eagles offensive coordinator job, and you're not telling me?
The only job I would be even remotely close, like have like a 0.05% chance of interviewing for, would be the Browns head coaching job, and that's just because nobody wants it. And because I just came out of college and I somewhat know how to write an essay, which apparently they have everyone write essays for their job. So that would be the only job I'd even be like, I don't know, like in a different universe of getting towards. But yeah, Jesus. But I don't know. The Eagles fans need to relax. There's some interesting options out there still, especially since the Jets fired their offensive coordinator and Ingstrom. And I actually think he's a really interesting choice for them potentially, because despite what was going on with the Jets offense, they just I actually do think he was doing some interesting things over there. But that's a conversation for another time whenever the Eagles finally do make a hire.
Real quick on the Eagles thing, and this is something I first said when the OC job opened up, is that I really didn't want it's crazy to say that I didn't want an established guy in there, but I didn't want somebody like a Dayball or McDaniels where you're going to get a year max out of them probably.
McDaniels was the different one for me. We'll get into that in a second. But.
Like Dayball, probably not, but I was like, all right, like that McDaniels offense would be insane, but I like at the same time I was like, well. Is it worth it to get potentially another Super Bowl out of it, and then say, but now we're looking for another offensive coordinator, and we're wasting another year of potentially of having someone internally. Like there's too many. I'm always a play it long, play it safe, but the thing is I understand is that when you look at the Eagles and you look at the pressure that Howie Roseman is under, especially with contracts, and you're going to have to pay Jalen Carter a lot of money pretty soon, and you got the whole cap situation is going to get tight.
A lot of the defense needs to get paid. A lot of the offense probably needs to get younger.
A lot of things you need to really work, and we need to see Howie Roseman work his magic. You really want to take advantage of it, and that's what I was saying. Like, all right, I understand that. But then I keep seeing the graphic, pushed around of Jalen Hurts and the offensive coordinators over his years, and I'm like, oh man, like I really would want to see him have a steady offensive mind who can work with him and continue to get the most out of him. And that's something that I still want to see, but at the same time, I'm not gonna like if McDaniels was hired, I'm not gonna go, oh no, like this is so terrible. Jalen Hurts is only gonna have a coordinator for a year because it's fucking Mike McDaniels. But I like the direction. I don't know. It's hard to like the direction that they're going in, but I like that they're being careful with what they're doing, and that it isn't just all right. Like here's a guy to fill the role. It feels like it's really looking around and analyzing things, and then deciding what's best.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll definitely talk about it when it does happen. But yeah, this is it's one of the most interesting positions that still needs to be filled. Okay. I did want to talk about one more. It's one we talked about previously, and we just said his name, and Mike McDaniel, because we talked about before, like last week, how like it wasn't officially yet, and he was still looking around at other jobs. It was officially yesterday. He's officially with the Chargers. The social media team did a great job and fun stuff, like announcing him, and he had his introductory press conference today. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here, and why I don't mean to make this just me like talk about like glowingly Mike McDaniel and how much like we like him, but man, you listen to him talk at this opening press conference about what his plans are for the offense, his philosophies, how he wants to work with Harbaugh in developing this offense with the run game, the pass game, and just in general. It's hard not to be like extremely impressed, and you can understand fully well why every team was so like gunning for him if they had an open spot for him, whether it be head coach or offensive coordinator. And this is why I wanted him on the Eagles so bad, because when he says stuff like he was talking about Justin Herbert. And he was saying, like, look, we know the plays that he can make. He can make the big plays. That it is in him. He has all the skills, athleticism, whatever it is. He has the ability to make the big plays. My job as an offensive coordinator is not only setting up those big plays, but giving him the options and the stuff underneath as well, where if that play isn't there, then we give him options to bail out. And it's not all on him to make the play. It's my job to make his job easier and to give him different options. But then when he was talking about the run game with Harbaugh, he was like, look, you've seen my game and how I've developed it over time with the run game and how I think that pairs well with the passing game and how this is all constantly evolving. And you have to be willing to evolve and adapt and be flexible when it comes to your offense and how you coach your team based on the personnel and what the people that you have. And he was talking about like working with 2 elite tackles, a quarterback, and the young receivers that they have, and exciting for that. And when you hear him talk about it, it's like, this is why he's so valuable as an offensive play caller, because these are things that a lot of offensive coordinators don't buy into, the evolving aspect. Like we see this happen all the time with like older coordinators. I don't mean to keep making this about former Eagles, but like Doug Peterson, right? Like my biggest complaint about him when he was with the Jags is that it seemed like he was still using the same playbook from when he was with the 2017 Eagles that he was with the Jaguars, trying to still do some of that like older RPO stuff where it was like, it's too predictable and just not creative. But with Mike McCarthy, you're going to get the opposite of that. It's innovation. It's working with your personnel. It's figuring out what your players can do and optimizing your offense best to go around that. So I think this is an excellent hire for the Chargers. And if they're a team that can, I don't know, stay healthy for the first time in a season with their franchise, I think this offense could be crazy dangerous going into next year, paired with what was already a top 10, potentially 5 defense.
Yeah. So the thing, and I'm just now kind of, this is just kind of now dawning on me, is that like I think a lot of slack, and kind of rightfully so, will go on Justin Herbert for not being able to execute. But I do think a lot of this, and you mentioned it, is the run game, and I think I'm really excited to see, yes, like what he can maximize out of Herbert,
And
but
Hampton.
yes, and this is where I'm going with this, is that we saw the way that he was able to develop A Chain, and I really want to see how he'll be able to develop Omarion Hampton, who we thought would have this amazing rookie year. Yes, he still had a solid rookie year, but
And he was hurt.
yeah, injuries played a role, and I'm really excited to see what he can do with Omarion Hampton, because I think a lot of credit and like once again, like rightfully so, we'll go to, oh, like now we're going to see Justin Herbert at his full potential. We're going to see Quentin Johnston making great plays, and then Lat McConkey being used right. And I'm really excited to see that, obviously, but like
Oh,
what
yeah,
about
the Lab McConkey part could be huge.
Yes, I think this offense is full of young potential, and I think that is the best thing for going for them forward, and they can always add more in the draft, and that is what is going to be very interesting to see how they move, because they're a team where I feel like they're not that they're right there, but like a couple more things go your way, and Justin Herbert actually shows up for you in the playoffs, and you're looking and saying, all right, like we're competing and a lot closer, to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they're gonna be interesting to watch. And like what you said about the weapons, like even Gradson, the young tight end that they were able to get in the later rounds. You have some young receivers, but I think you go out and get like one more like good actual like X receiver, unless Quentin Johnson takes another step. Like this could be a very very dangerous team. Again, with the Chargers, the caveat is always kind of like with the Sixers, right? If they stay healthy, then this could be like a very good team. But we'll see what happens.
This thing would be like, I think you need to tag first. Offensive line. You need to protect Justin Herbert.
Yeah, as long as you get all and Slater back as like your bookend tackles, right? Like great elite tackles there, and then we'll see what happens, because I think they're real. Yeah, they need to work on their interior 100%. So we'll see what happens there, and especially if you're going to be a good run game, that's what you're going to need. All right, anything else we need to talk about with coaching changes for the NFL in general?
No, it's okay. So there's just one final thing I wanted to ask you. So there are 3 head coaching jobs still open as of right now: Arizona Cardinals, Cleveland Browns, and the Las Vegas Raiders. If you're, once again, we're going to this scenario of you're a great young up and coming offensive coordinator. I feel like you're more defensive guy. You're a great defensive mind. You're coming up in the ranks, and you see these 3 options, and they're like, we all want to bring you in for an interview. Just looking at the personnel, and yes, because we could talk about the organizations and their various issues, looking at all of the personnel and just the roster specific stuff, which of these is the most appealing to you?
God, that's hard. I mean, I could make cases for all 3 of like, because especially if you're asking me, my first question, I'll start with the Raiders. My first question with the Raiders is, are you getting Mendoza? Because in my mind, I don't think you should. And this isn't a thing this entirely is not a thing being against Mendoza. I think Mendoza could be a good quarterback, potentially franchise. My thing is, are we just going to bring a quarterback in here who I'm now handcuffed to with a team that is at the bottom of the league when it comes to many things across the board, whether that be O-line, some defensive stuff, like a receiver, like what do we have there, right? Besides like a few kind of like third stringers, I would think. Like, so that would be my first question with the Raiders is like, are we going to trade back and try to ransom this pick to somebody, and then I can build with that going forward? That would be my first question with the Raiders, because maybe this is just because I'm a sicko, but like I would want to go with the Raiders if they were going to ransom that first round pick, or the first overall pick, and not draft the quarterback right away and let me build this team up. With the Cardinals, I don't know what the hell. I just don't know. Like I really, what's your deal? Like, how are we going to go quarterback? Again, like all 3 of these teams, the quarterback thing is the question. The Cardinals have some intriguing pieces where it's like a couple of linemen you can work with. I like the receivers. The running back room could be better, especially because it's getting older and some of the young pieces, like no one can stay healthy. And then on defense, I do like some of the pieces there. Like you have some decent DBs, Buda Baker.
Baker, Josh Sweat when he comes back from his injury.
Yeah, and then let me also say this up front: I don't trust any of these front offices. So it's
That's why I like that. I was like just personnel because you're kind of going into like you're going into a situation where it's like that your relationship with the front office is going to be historically just not very good. So
if we're talking, but then if we're going pure personnel, unfortunately, I probably would go the Browns. Like I straight up would. They had a good rookie draft class this last year. We had some intriguing young pieces, whether it be on defense and offense. Think about Schlesinger, right? You get to work with Myles Garrett. Especially if I'm a defensive guy, you tell me I get Myles Garrett. I get, name a DB, whether it be Delpit, Ward. And then you give me Schlesinger. I don't know if JOK is coming back or not. I really don't know what that injury did to him. But if he comes back, then I got an elite. I have elite linebackers. I have an elite D line. Didn't like the Mason Graham pick, but whatever. I still have an elite D line with Myles Garrett. And the offense, Fannin, right, guys like that. I kind of liked what I saw from Isaiah Bond. The running back room, we'll see what happens there with the injuries and whoever else maybe they can bring in. And then again, it's the quarterback thing. My first question with the Browns is, what the fuck are we doing with Deshaun Watson? That'd be first and foremost. But yeah. So all three of them, it's what are we doing at quarterback? What's our approach to that? What is your thoughts on it? And then personnel wise, the sicko in me says the Raiders because I just basically get to start from scratch. But the smart person in me goes, well, I can hook myself to this defense and build with that, and then we have some young players on offense to build up with as well.
So I'm the opposite of you. I'm an offensive mind here. I'm coming in and I'm looking at these things and I'm giving myself the same rules. And I think I'm in the same thought with you, where yes, I understand the.
See, now I'm already going back. I think.
For me, I like more we talk through it. It's Raiders for me. I look at this and yes, I understand like they're literally in the position where they're viewed as, well, not viewed as, they are the worst team in the league numerically. And
Tom Brady lording over you.
Yes, and Mark Davis. Mark Davis creeps me the hell out. That needs to be said. I can't explain why, but just trust me on that. I look at this and say, all right, I really like being able to come in and be given a blank canvas and the opportunity to say, hey, it is fully yours. And I really like Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, and the potential to work with them. And you can literally get a king's ransom for the number one overall pick. And I agree with you that I think like it is always much better. And I literally saw a graphic that sums this up perfectly. And it was like drafting either the Miami tackle or the Utah guard, and it was like drafting one of those and then having Mac Jones as your quarterback, or drafting Mendoza and having bad offensive line, and it was like literally like Mendoza doesn't have time to throw the ball and Mac Jones has time to throw the ball, and it gives opportunities for your options to work. And I was like, oh, when you put it like that, and especially because there's a lot of great options in this free agent, well, a lot of great options, I say that, but
I also will say, like, I didn't mention Genty and Brock Bowers, but like those two and Max Crosby, who we don't even know if is staying is on this team, are the only three players that I'm like, I have to coach this team.
Yes, and that's why I was like, oh, like who else? And I was like, I mean, that's about it. But because of that, like, it gives you a lot of options, and obviously naturally they have a lot of cap space because nobody wants to go there. So you can. If you're offensive mind that comes in, or hell, whatever, like I'm just taking a scenario where I'm an offensive mind coming in and looking and say, all right, you get to work with these two young stars. I'm given the option to go out there and do whatever I want. Like I'm like, all right, cool. Like I can make this work and I can do something special with this. And that's why I look at this and say, I think to me, it's the best option in terms of being able to give a clean slate and come in and say, you have full control over this. I think when you look at the Browns, you're tied to all their previous decisions where you're stuck with a Deshaun Watson. You're stuck with, and yes, I was supposed to be leaving the off the field stuff out of this, but I can't. It's the Browns. Like
that's why it's like I would lean more towards the Raiders, like in that. It's just
the Brown situation is just looming over, and it makes it all negative. And then you look at the Cardinals, and it's like, well, yeah, they're kind of in between both, where it's like they don't have crazy negative PR coming from them. Your roster's pretty solid, but like it feels like I would put this like if I was to rank them, it would be Raiders, Cardinals, and then the Browns, in my opinion, in terms of which ones I would most want to least want to. The Browns one I look at, and you're tied to a lot. The Cardinals one I look at as well. I think the Cardinals have even more weapons. Like I like Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson had a great year for them.
Trey
Wolf
McBride.
who's showing flashes as a rookie. Trey McBride, you mentioned, like there's a lot more pieces, which makes me like want to even switch up my decision. And I think that I'll stand by my decision where I like the idea of the clean slate more, which is why I'm leaning more towards the Raiders. The
No,
Cardinals really crazy negative, like super negatives that stand out. I think a lot of it is injuries, and I think a lot of the players that you mentioned, like a Josh Sweat, probably won't be able to get back until later in the season. So stuff like that, it makes it difficult. But I lean the Raiders, in my opinion, have the best opening.
Yeah, so I agree with you, but because in the context of like just personnel, especially as a defensive guy, the Browns. But if I'm saying like, all right, I just need like a team that I can get behind, I can work with going forward, I think I would go the Raiders, oddly enough, even though it's like you're the most starting from scratch with that team. But like I said, the biggest thing to me is that if they said they were willing to trade the first pick, then it's 100% the Raiders. If they're not willing to trade that pick, then I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think that does make up a big difference. And I think that's probably why it's held up some of these negotiations where it's like, all right, like Mendoza's a shoe-in for the first quarterback to go off the board. Which team is he going to? And I think as time goes by, that'll like, or probably as the conversation has been going, it's probably been a big discussion of, well, like you'd get a lot more if you were to move down, get a king's ransom for it, and you can say, all right, like this draft class is I'd say relatively open, and I think especially like with the moment Dante Moore was like, I'm staying at Oregon, I feel like it became hell to like really entirely mock draft this. And yes, like it feels like there's like the you can shoe in based off positions and everything, but all it takes is the Raiders to be like, we don't want this anymore. Who wants it? And you see teams get really aggressive, and I think there's some teams who could like feel that they're a lot further along than others. So
I mean, the Jets and the Cardinals are right there below you at 2 and 3
yeah.
in the draft. I mean, imagine if you were able to trade with the Jets, who have all those picks that they have in not this upcoming draft, but the one after that, where you could get like multiple first round picks from them or Arizona, whatever it is.
Jets, so they're still going to be there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like if I'm Vegas, I am bothering the Jets constantly, saying like, "Hey, you want Mendoza? Because we'll take all the picks and then maybe throw in an alignment or something." But like, yeah, that would be my main thing. That's what makes the Vegas so intriguing. It's just all three of these teams are where they're at for a reason. It's not entirely personnel, but okay. Yeah, I like that. That was fun. Maybe one day we should do a video where we talk about us, you being the offensive coordinator, me being the defensive coordinator, and I don't know. We both co-CEO of the team.
With a visor and like we do interviews.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a quick role play to end this. I'm not like
Pause.
that. Okay, I am the Browns organization. You're a head coach coming in for an interview. All right.
Mhm.
How are you doing, Tyler? Welcome in.
Oh, this is great. This is good practice. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay, ask me again.
All right, Tyler, how are you? Welcome into the Browns organization. Thanks for allowing us to reach out to you for this opening. We were very excited by your defensive pedigree at Temple.
Yeah, sure. Sure, why not? Yeah, I'm the next Todd Bowles. Let's go. Let's fuck it. Yeah, let's go.
We were really excited to see what you did there. We'd love to have you for the Browns organization. So just looking at it on paper, like what would be your first move with the Browns? Like you get here day one, what are you doing?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me in here. I'm very excited to be here. I haven't been to Cleveland a lot, but the times that I have been here, I've enjoyed my time. I think it's an underrated city. Your organization is a historical one where you think back to even just the days of Jim Brown and your ownership and your leadership group just being a part of the blue collar fabric of the NFL. So I'm excited to be here, even if it is just for an interview. I appreciate that. Going forward with this team, if I were put in a position to make decisions with this team and handle the defense and the personnel going on and so forth, my first move with this team would be to fire your GM and get a new owner. And then I get kicked out of the building.
All right. Well, I commend you for standing up and standing.
And by the way, I'm saying all this after I talked to Myles Garrett on the side, and he's standing behind me with his arms crossed, nodding his head. That's how that meeting would go. Myles Garrett and I basically we conduct a coup of the Browns organization, and we take it over.
I mean, that might be better in terms of making things interesting and providing them an option. Be like, well, Myles Garrett is our guy, so if he's backing this guy, we got no choice. No, but nobody's knocking down the door. So,
serious answer though would be, well, first and foremost, I would do everything I can to find a quarterback for this team. I think our defense is solid. I think we have a lot of good pieces that we have currently, and that can be even better going forward with the younger guys that we have. On offense, I think we've got some great, fantastic options there as young guys. Your organization did a good job drafting this last year, and I think you set yourself up well for the future. But of course, the main question that I'm going to have for you is, what is the plan going forward with quarterback? What is my say in that? Because I'll be completely upfront with you and brutally honest. I think there needs to be we need a steady presence in the quarterback room, and I don't think that answer is currently here in Cleveland. So whether that be through the draft or free agency, I think we need to attack that position head on first, because it is the most important position of football and one that is currently foggy for us. So I think we handle that first, and we have a mindset, or we have to be on the same mindset going forward with that. And then after that, I bring in an offensive mind. Like, I trust, I've got a friend named Jay, who also from Temple, who might want to come in and coach some of these guys. I know he loves to attack people. Probably, I would think you're more of like a spread offense, kind of like attack the outside kind of guy. But I bring in minds like that, and we build this team going forward with a mentality that we are not the Browns of the old, we are the Browns of the future, and that we're going to have a mentality where we attack each and every year. And our main thing is, we're not going to focus on getting the trophy right away, right? That is always the ultimate, that is the end goal. But my main number one thing each and every year is progressing and developing this team, and then everything else will lay out ahead of us from there.
And then as the Browns owner, I go, I'm glad you have a solution for the quarterback thing, because we had no fucking clue what we were doing.
And I would say, yes, sir, I knew that. Yes, sir, I have eyes.
All right, that was a fun little exercise, and I feel like we're not very far off from interviews. Obviously removing the dramatics, but it is genuinely like a difficult process, because you are towing the line of how much confidence does ownership really have in you, and I think that will really determine a lot of this, because there are a lot of personnel decisions which will make or break this team moving forward.
Very true. But yeah, anyway, so that'll never happen, but it's a fun exercise to play. And I just, oh God, yeah, I just.
Also, hiring your friends. We saw that work for the Eagles. Come on. Look, I appreciate the job opportunity, but I don't know.
Every coach does that. Every coach does that. You don't get anywhere unless you know somebody. Every coach does that. Sirianni brought in Steichen because he was good friends with him, right? So, I mean, it happens.
It works occasionally.
Yeah. All right, man. Anything else we need to talk about, or any other scenarios you want to go through?
Nope.
Okay, maybe next show I'll have you interview for the Raiders job, and we'll see how that goes.
I'll be ready. I'll bring my notes.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. You get time to prepare. That was all at the dome for me, but whatever. We'll go through that next. That'll be a lot of fun to do. But thank you, everybody, for watching our show again. We really appreciate it. We're excited for the Super Bowl. I can't wait to watch these teams play against each other. We'll have a more extensive breakdown of both teams in our preview for that as we get closer to the Super Bowl. But in the meantime, keep a lookout for extra content that we put out through YouTube especially. We appreciate everybody for giving us the views there. And we'll be talking some more basketball again here soon with the All-Star games coming up. The trade deadline is coming up as well. Right before the All-Star break, we know that's always crazy. I don't know if we're going to have a Luka Doncic type of trade this year, but we didn't think we were going to have it last year either. So lots of interesting things to happen. Free my man, Jonathan Kuminga.
Right now, I don't. if there's a big trade to happen, I need to see it because we're getting bored here.
Yeah. What's the score? Let's see. The Sixers are barely beating the Bucks right now. With each loss, it feels like the Bucks are closer to losing Giannis. So we'll see what happens. But thank you again to everybody for listening. I've been Tyler Blankenship. That's been Jason Nieves. We will see you all again next week. Appreciate it.